Hey everybody, welcome to the first ever Fine Tire Podcast, episode 1. My name is Jeff Ruprecht. I'm a graphic designer, I'm a baseball lover, and I'm the founder of Pine Tar Clothing Company, where we're celebrating the hustle and heart of baseball. So I created this apparel company 3 or 4 years ago, after a bunch of years of kicking the idea around. And I finally took the leap, and so it's been a whirlwind of ups and downs, but mostly all good stuff. If you ever tried starting a business, especially an apparel company, it's not exactly the easiest thing in the world, but I've cherished every second of it. It's a way I can still, I guess, be a fan of the game, to still interact with the game, put my talents to use. Outside of my normal everyday job, if you will. And so, anyways, I decided that I'm going to start creating some more long form content, and figured while I was at it, I would just record it, and start a podcast out of it. So this is episode 1. Welcome. I'm not sure where I'm going from here. I do know that I plan to talk about a lot of different aspects of the game. One of the things that we're passionate about as a company, as Pine Tar Clothing Company, is we believe in playing the game a certain way. We call it the right way. I don't know if it is the right way, but the way I was taught. And that was just, you play the game with a lot of hustle and heart. And I also like to say grit and love. When I say that can also mean a lot of different things. But, typically the idea being that if you ever go to a game and you see a ball player who's got, mud or dirt all the way up their jersey, on their pants. They probably got one of the dirtiest helmets, you name it. They're probably one of your better ball players. Those are typically the guys or the gals too. I mean, if you're playing softball, but, no matter where you're playing the game, if you will, usually those are the people that have the I don't know what the right word is for it. They've got the drive. They've got the it, and they're probably one of the better players on the team, typically. Granted, everyone loves the game in a lot of different ways. I know for me, we're in Minnesota. That's where I'm actually in northern Minnesota. I grew up in the central part of the state, farm country, down there. And, when I started playing, it was probably around age 8 or 9. And I remember it was a little, back in the woods behind our church, there was this like little kind of forgotten field. It was kind of overgrown, and some local church folks were putting together a team for kids to play. And so, and I had played, I hadn't played organized ball before. I would play catch with my dad. I would play some pickup games with my neighbor kids, in our yard kind of thing. I'd go to a lot of my families come from farms. And so there'd be like out in the pastures, like on Easter or different kinds of family get together events. We'd have like a pickup, more or less a softball game, underhand softball, but the same idea. And we'd play there. And I remember I couldn't wait to go play. It was always fun to play with my cousins and stuff. And so when I got to play like organized ball, it was a kind of a new thing to me. I caught on real quick, just all that whole team aspect and rivalries. There was also some other smaller kind of farm communities that had similar teams starting that we'd play every summer. And then of course I played into middle school and high school. And, I was a decent player. I was, of a pitcher, played all outfield, played in some pretty important games in high school. We never got to the state tournament, but we got close a couple times. And, I just remember that was, for me at that point in my life, like that was everything, traveling around with your friends, your buddies, the bus trips, the summertime when you got old enough, you could drive, we would drive to like Legion games ourselves. And, of course, being kids, we get in trouble sometimes doing stupid stuff in between, but we go play games everywhere. And, So that was just, for me, playing baseball has just been such a huge part of my life. And then I also, as a designer, I always latched on to, team logos. I collected baseball cards, if you didn't figure it out behind me. I'm actually into really old school stuff now, like turn of the century tobacco cards and things like that, which in future episodes of this, I'd like to maybe talk about history. I think there's a huge part of understanding the history of the game that make you really appreciate the game today, and where it's come from. They call it America's pastime, because at the turn of the 20th century, the early 1900s, late 1800s, this was it. Like, you didn't have television, you didn't have other things that to preoccupy your time. This was even before football. I mean, football is probably our most popular sport now, which is fine. I like football too, but I still love watching the game. I still love watching my local teams play. I coached my sons. They're older now, and my oldest actually played in college a little bit. And those were, for me growing up and just getting into the whole thing of really, really loving, living and breathing the game, playing it, collecting baseball cards, watching it on TV. And then I got into college and kind of forgot about it a little bit, but I shouldn't say I forgot about it, but just wasn't a priority. I did play a week. One thing I'll also talk about at some point is in Minnesota, and I don't know if there's a lot of this in other states. I should probably do some research, but I know in Minnesota it's pretty big. It's been big for 100 years, and you'd think Minnesota being a huge baseball state, but believe it or not, even though we're called the state of hockey, there's a lot of good baseball that's played here in Minnesota, especially in the summertime when we're not freezing our butts off. But that is town ball. Not so much up here. So I'm closer. I actually live outside Duluth, Minnesota, and there's the whole Iron Range to the north of us yet, and there's a few teams up there and stuff. But where I grew up, down south of the central part of the state, almost every little town has what we call a town ball team. I played for a couple of years for our local team that was mostly right out of high school into college a little bit, until I just couldn't do the driving thing anymore. And I kind of hung it up, just was becoming too much. But man, there's some good baseball players that I got to play with and against, guys that would come home from college in the summer playing college ball. And, the first time I saw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball when I was like 19, and then in high school, you get a guy once in a while might be throwing 80, and that seems, hard. And keep in mind, this is the, 1990s, and, there's guys throwing 95 plus now, right? And that's actually kind of like the norm. Well, back then, if you threw 90, it was like, well, that guy throws hard, right? First time you see it and you're not used to it, even 90 is pretty tough. But anyways, I just know that the game has given me a lot in my life. So when I wanted to start out this endeavor, it was just kind of by accident. So my oldest son and my youngest son too, but like I coached them both. And, even when you get to a point where you can't coach anymore, usually it's around 7th, 8th grade and they're in the middle school ball and then they're on the verge of playing high school ball. You kind of done playing or coaching, because now you've got guys that are actually getting paid to coach, do it. I did it as I've always been very involved in my kids' lives and a lot of things, and just want to be really present for them growing up. And so I feel really fortunate that I was able to do that. Sometimes about a necessity. Sometimes there was just no one that would want to step up and do it. And I'm like, I'll just do it because, I want to have everyone have a good experience, not just my own kids, but everyone else. That's a whole nother story, coaching. But anyways, I just know that when they're in high school ball and they're playing, and you of course you're still invested in how they're doing, how they're progressing. My oldest son, he had aspirations to play college ball, so I had to be a little bit even more kind of vested interest in that, because had him play some summer travel ball team stuff to kind of get noticed, and eventually he got to play that. But in high school, I remember one night after a game that I think we had lost, if I remember right. And I just remember that the team it was a close game, but there were some plays that you just knew that there wasn't 100% effort there, and so, you always kind of like talk it through with them, see how they're feeling, and what they're first. Let's give them a chance to vent about how a game went, and not that he was venting per se about anything or specific, but just saying, I think there's as a team we had a lack of effort, and I was like, yeah, guys got to get more dirty. They got to get just more invested in this, and I don't know. Then all of a sudden it struck me like the idea of getting dirty and stuff. And like, I'm like, it'd be really cool as a apparel brand would be called Pine Tar Clothing, cause Pine Tar is, dirty and gross and sticky. And, but there is this kind of like, it's this synonymous thing with that again, I always feel like I think back to like as a kid, like George Brett, there was the Pine Tar incident, where he got kicked out of a game for having too much pine tar in his bath. And although you don't see a lot of pine tar per se anymore, it's more of this bat tack and spray on stuff, but I think there's still some of that going around. But I just remember pine tar being this kind of like, dirty, gritty thing, and so it just seemed like a good, like, what's the right word for it? Metaphor for the idea of playing the game the right way. And, it had a nice, cool name, ring to it too, Pine Tar Clothing. And anyway, I drew it on a napkin. It's kind of simple, kind of baseball sketch, and I'll be honest, I've seen other kind of representations of a baseball with stuff written in it. But this one that I did out and is actually what we call the emblem logo, kind of came out of that. And then from there, just kind of like kicked it around. And as a designer, I'm always drawing. I'm always doing up, doodles of things. And of course I got this idea and I just couldn't let it go. Right. So anyways, I kind of kept going with it. And, but then during the pandemic was when I had more time on my hands than normal. And so I was like, I'm going to work on Pine Tar a little bit. I kind of missed the game because at the time they kind of canceled part of the season already. I don't know if you remember, like they eventually did have the major league start up. Like I want to say it was after Memorial Day. I think they had like a 50 game schedule. No one at the ballpark. It was just the games. You'd watch them on TV. It was just such a weird, surreal time in every aspect of life. Right. But anyway, so with the time in my hand, when we were all kind of like stuck at home, I started like kind of just getting a little bit more serious about it and like what it could be. And so the more and more I did, I started sharing it on some social media things. People seemed to kind of like it. So I kind of kept going with it. Well, after the pandemic, it kind of started to cease and stuff. That's when I was like, well, I got this thing now. What do I do with it? And so, well, let's do it. Right. So Pine Tar was born. And, anyway, so like 2022 ish, I think I started actually getting all my stuff together as far as, making an actual legal company and stuff. And it was late that year into 23 is when I kind of started, actually, I think launched it officially. I did a couple of shows around here. I started selling online and, and then I got a shot or an opportunity to go down to the College World Series in 2023, the summer of 2023. Did that. I actually want to go back. I was invited back, but one thing I wasn't really ready for was the idea or the fact that it takes a lot of money to go down to Omaha for 2 weeks with product and, not having racks and things that I would need to, be able to have this kind of like pop-up store for 2 weeks. So I put a lot of dollars into that, and obviously staying there for 2 weeks and eating, and it added up quick. And so, although I did decent there, I decided to take a year or two off just to kind of get my bearings and do it more, because I kind of jumped right into it really quickly. And so, but fast forward now, here I am. And, a lot of good things have happened. A lot of good, there's a lot of things I could be doing better, to be honest. And, but still something I'm really passionate about, something I still want to grow. And again, it keeps me connected to the game. And so I really like the idea of maybe start doing these more longer form things and some very specific kinds of little videos here to kind of just talk through, I don't know, my thoughts on playing the game a certain way. I have a bunch of contacts of people that I've already talked to about being some guests on the program. I also have some Pine Tar athletes, I call them. They're college players, mostly D1 right now. I have a couple new guys starting soon, who are buying into the brand, and as far or buying in the fact that they like the brand, they want to represent the brand. And so we're going to do a couple kind of collaborations, if you will, with some of these guys. But I might have them on the program and hear their experiences as a college ball player, their path through high school and growing up, and how do you get to that point. I think that'd be interesting. I know everyone's story is a little bit different. Some people are promising and then they get hurt and they have to stop. Other guys that maybe hurt early on and they kept with it and then end up in the major leagues. Like, there's always these just, that's their human interest stories, right? Because everyone's got paths. Everyone has the dream of playing in the majors one day, or at the very least, maybe playing at another level for more than just their high school years. That's one thing I love about the idea. I played town ball. I get to play at least a couple more years. Cause now as I'm in my 50s, the idea of playing an actual baseball game, kind of like, I can't even imagine that anymore. And there was a point when that's all I lived for, so, but, I just want to, I want to do something different. I want to start to get something going, and, we'll see where this thing goes. If you've got anything that you'd ever want to hear or see, let me know. You can get me, on my DMs. I'm on all the major platforms, the TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, of course. So there we get a chance. Usually I think I have all my handles are at Pine Tar Clothing, I believe. So you can find me there. But yeah, I want to keep talking about baseball. I want to keep showing you some things. I'll show you some of the actual pieces too, and maybe some stories behind some of the designs. But I'm going to show you some of my baseball cards. I'm going to show you some other cool, like, books, talk about some history things. I want to talk about playing the game a certain way, maybe the upcoming seasons for different people and different levels. We're just going to talk about stuff. So, anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for listening. And I'll look for you to be watching the next episode. And I'm trying to do this at least once a week. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not promising anything, but that's the plan. So thanks, and we'll talk to you very, very soon.